Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to a special review for the brand new Ozzy Osbourne album, Patient Number 9. Now this is a deluxe edition that we are going to go through, but I've also got the standard jewel case edition that we will talk about. So we're going to hit on both of those. This album just came out on Friday, September 9th of 2022, and I kind of like the tie-in there with Patient Number 9 and September 9th, so 999, 3 upside down sixes maybe. Who knows? But this one here, despite Ozzy looking like, he's kind of on his last legs with all his medical issues and things like that, since 2020, he's had a real resurgence in creativity, and we've gotten 2 great albums out of him, culminating now with this one here, Patient Number 9. We're going to dive into that in just a bit. But before we do, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please click the button. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by subscribing, you'll be able to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of music, just like this, with a brand new review for Patient Number 9 from Ozzy Osbourne, his 13th studio album. And so a little bit of history here on Ozzy. Black Sabbath's roots go back to 1967, which means Ozzy has now been performing for 55 years, which I think is really amazing. The debut Black Sabbath album comes out in 1970, and then a decade later, in 1980, the debut solo album from Ozzy comes out. And so Ozzy's released 9 studio albums with Black Sabbath, and he's released 13 as a solo artist, which means he now has recorded 22 studio albums, culminating with this one here being Patient Number 9. Combined total of all of those albums, he has sold over 100 million albums. So pretty impressive stuff for Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness. And it leads us right into what we want to talk about here. Patient Number 9, 13th solo album from Ozzy. 13 tracks on it. So again, another cool little tie-in. It is 66 minutes long, 1 hour, 1 minute. Co-written, performed, and produced by Andrew Watt. And Andrew Watt played with California Breed, which is a band with Glenn Hughes and Jason Bonham. So, he did that, but then he moved into the production world, and he's done a lot with different types of artists, including Post Malone, who Ozzy guested with. We all know about that because it was the last track on the last album. Ordinary Man, wish they had left that off, but that's for another story. Still, Andrew Watt, I think, has been really, really good for Ozzy, helping to get this creative resurgence happening for him. And this album here has just an outstanding, stellar array of guest musicians that are on it. We've got Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, Tony Iommi, fellow Black Sabbath member there, Zakk Wylde, who's a long-running guitar player for Ozzy, and of course Mike McCready of Pearl Jam guesting on here, as well as other cool guest musicians, Chad Smith of the Red Hot Chili Peppers playing drums, Taylor Hawkins, God rest his soul, of the Foo Fighters, also playing drums on here before he passed, Duff McKagan of GNR on bass, and Chris Chaney of Jane's Addiction on bass as well. So lots and lots of cool guest artists on here. And I find it interesting that on the last album, Ordinary Man, he had a number of cool guests on there, including Chad Smith and Duff McKagan and Slash and other cool people on there, Tom Morello, but they didn't promote it the way that they are doing with this one here and actually listing the guest guitar players. And Ozzy has had a career with some really outstanding guitarists in his band. Kind of crazy that until now, he's never really made an album that has had almost, a different amazing guitar player per song kind of a thing. The way that you might think of that he should have done, being the talent that has been, surrounding Ozzy over the years. This album I find to be very similar in vein to Osmosis from 1995. One, there's a lot of co-writes, and Osmosis was the first time that Ozzy didn't rely solely on his band and in fact started bringing in a lot of outside writers, and that has kind of continued the trend over the years. For good or bad, that could be debated. But this one here, again, has a lot of co-writes outside of Ozzy's core group of band members and things of that nature. In fact, Zakk Wylde, who does play all the rhythm guitars and also is featured in the lead, does not co-write anything that's on here. And while on some albums I would say that would be a detriment, and that has been in the past, this one here, I have to say, is a really, really stellar group of songs that are on here. But like Osmosis, it's more melodic in its leanings, more radio friendly. However, there are enough heavier moments on this thing that really bring it home when it's needed. And like the last album, Ordinary Man, there are reminiscent elements of things that bring in that Black Sabbath influence that isn't always present on Ozzy's solo albums. You know, usually his solo material has been very different than the Black Sabbath stuff that he did back in the 70s with the band. But on the last album here, and going back to Scream was really the first time that I heard Black Sabbath influences being brought into the solo era of Ozzy. But this one here, we've got it. However, this time when we've got it, we've actually got Tony Iommi on it. So for me at least, it makes it that much more acceptable that they're trying to replicate some of that stuff, because we've actually got the man, the riff master himself, Tony Iommi, doing that. And he even co-writes one of the songs that he's on. And so let's go ahead and jump into some of those songs that are on here. But right off the bat, the first three tracks on here, Patient Number 9, which was the lead single, of course, title track, Immortal, and Parasite, are outstanding. I can't believe how good these songs are on this album. Number 3, which is Parasite, which has Zakk Wylde on it, his shredding on this thing just goes to show why Zakk should be brought back into the fold. Co-writing songs, playing on all the future albums. His guitar playing just stands out and is phenomenal. But when we're talking about that Tony Iommi song, or both of the songs that we were talking about, No Escape From Now is the one that he co-writes that's on here. That's number 4. Then we move into one with Eric Clapton, One of Those Days. And even into the next one, number 6, the first half of this album, number 6, called A Thousand Shades, which is a Jeff Beck song that's on here. It's outstanding. I can't believe how great the first half of this album is. The second half takes a little bit of a dip. It's not that it's bad, but when you got such great songs kicking the things off, I mean, sometimes there's only a way to go down from that point. But there's another really great song that is on here, number 11, Dead and Gone. That one is equally as good as those first 6 tracks that are on there. So, you come back up towards the end on it. What I find interesting is that all of the songs have a guest guitarist listed on it. There are 3 in a row that are Zakk Wylde songs that are on here, and it's nice to just hear that repeat sound that we get from Zakk Wylde on here, like an old, style Ozzy solo album. But at the end, we've got Dead and Gone, God Only Knows, and Dark Side Blues, which don't list any guest guitarists. But we've actually got, Josh Homme is guesting on one of these here. Of course, Andrew Watt is playing on it. We've got Zakk Wylde. So why they didn't choose to call out the guitar players for those songs, I'm not entirely sure. But, that's what they chose to do. Every song that's on here is really good, worthy of this album, feels great. One of my complaints from the previous album, Ordinary Man, was that they closed it with the Post Malone song that just didn't fit. Unfortunately, we've got that happening here again. Different style, but the last track, 13, Dark Side Blues, is like an old 1940s or 50s blues song that sounds really raw and old, like it's recorded with a single microphone kind of a thing. Ozzy's on it with a harmonica and stuff like that, and it just doesn't fit the album at all. But it's only about 1.5 minutes long, and I guess if that's how you want to close out your album, you can do that. I'm kind of surprised he didn't have Jeff Beck or Eric Clapton, one of those amazing blues guitar players, play on it if you want to make a traditional blues song. But that's really my only complaint on this album here, is the way that it ends with that. But like I said, it's 1.5 minutes. It's kind of like an outro on it, and you get 12 stellar tracks before that, so I'm okay with it. But we're going to edit that out. All right, so we're back. Maybe Ozzy was trying to tell me that he didn't like me dogging on his last song, but rest of the album, very, very good. As I said, this album, A real good return to form style Ozzy album. Just a lot of classic, good sounding tracks on it with stellar performances and things of that nature. So let's take a look inside here. Front cover of it, very cool, classic shot of Ozzy there. Back side of the album itself, track listing with all of the different guitar players who guest on these songs, of course, except for those last three that I talked about there. And when we open it up, this is what we see on the inside here. And I'll pop the disc out. Not much to see behind it, but there is an inlay there, and of course, a cool shot of Ozzy. Pull out the booklet here, and we just get a bunch of lyrics, but it says who plays on every track and that sort of stuff that's in here. Then we get this good shot of Ozzy going a little mad in there, like Patient Number 9 would lead us to believe. Rest of the lyrics and things of that nature and so forth. But this is the cool thing here. The limited edition version of this, which has a comic book done by Todd McFarlane, of course, of Spawn fame, and the CD that's inside here as well, comes in this envelope, which I had to tear open here. Didn't really like having to do that. I kind of wish it was done a little bit better and didn't leave all those tear marks on it. But there is a flap for it to go in, and so that makes it a little bit better that it doesn't just stay up like that. It flips in there and so forth. And then you can see right there when we pull this out that we've got the comic book there with some cool art by Todd McFarlane in it. And if we flip it over, the cardboard backer that's in this actually, instead of just being a whiteboard like it is for typical comic books, we get the Ozzy Osbourne logo. And it does come with the CD in it, but it is just a cardboard sleeve. And I'm going to go ahead and open this, and I will pull this out and show you guys a little bit more. And so first thing up, I'll show you that backer card, Ozzy on one side and Patient Number 9 there. And the disc, while I didn't open it, it is just a cardboard sleeve. I figured if I got the jewel case, I don't need to take that out of the plastic. But the cool thing being the comic book. And so that was a cool little thing. And look at the art that's on the inside of this thing. Let's get to some good art. There we go. I haven't read this. I don't know what the storyline is that's taking place in here and how much it ties into the album or doesn't tie into the album, but still cool nonetheless for all of the great art and everything that's in here. And again, something a little different that Ozzy hasn't done. My only complaint with this is that there is an alternate album cover designed by Todd McFarlane, and I really had hoped that it would have been this on the cardboard sleeve here. Thereby, when I'm buying the jewel case edition of it, there would be a reason to have the two different ones. So just know that the deluxe edition that comes with comic book is the same as the jewel case. If you want that limited edition, one that's designed by Todd McFarlane, you got to go to Ozzy's website to order it. All right, but bottom line on this album, as I said, I think it's a really good album. Producer Andrew Watt, I think, has been really good for Ozzy. 2 albums in 2 years, I can't complain with that. I think he's given Ozzy a resurgence in creativity and reason to be doing things. I think there's something for everyone on this album here. It's both modern and classic at the same time. I think appealing to both old and new fans alike on here. And in my opinion, it's the best Ozzy album in the last 20 years since Down to Earth in 2001. I think that says a lot right there. 21 years and we're finally getting a really stellar Ozzy Osbourne album, in my opinion. So do yourself a favor, go out and check it out, and certainly consider sharing this out on social media. Help spread the word, both for my channel, but also for Ozzy and this great album that he has put out here in 2022. All right, everyone, take care, have a good one, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye, everyone.